everyone, welcome to inreallore. Today I have a special guest that's going to be going over some questions that she has that's burning in her mind about what I do. And it is my mother-in-law.
Hi everyone. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting topic. I know nothing about Warhammer, but when I saw that Nick is playing with these little toys, I wanted to know more about it. I want to know, what is Warhammer? So I thought, you know what, this will be really interesting for me to actually start learning as a novice, like person who doesn't know anything about this stuff.
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Stonum's got into it on her own kind of like range, and now Bubbly is here.
Forced into it.
Yes. Sonam, it was her idea to do everything here, so to do the setup. So
Yes.
she has no one to blame but herself.
Great.
So yeah, we're just this is more or less gonna be just her asking me questions. I'm gonna answer. I have nothing planned. I have no script. I have nothing. So Bubbly, what is your first question for me?
Okay, I don't have anything planned, but I'm interested. What is Warhammer? I've been hearing about this. I've been looking at the videos. I don't understand them. So I thought, you know what, let's start at the basic. What is Warhammer?
So the easiest thing is that Warhammer is a tabletop game that was made in the 1980s. So It was originally made by Games Workshop in the UK out of Nottingham in the UK. But they were generally making a game that they wanted to do in a science fiction setting, and they were just kind of taking inspiration from various different places. And the first edition, called Rogue Trader, was just a bunch of like captains on ships that were going out into different solar systems, getting trading done and all that kind of stuff, piracy. Over time, it has expanded from just the tabletop aspect of it, the game, to have stories written about it, about the general universe. There have been multiple different games made of the tabletop, but then also video games. There's been animations. There's been other things that have taken inspiration for it, but it is a hodgepodge of very grim horror style science fiction.
Okay. So are there books on this as well now? Like from what I'm looking at, it's like a world of its own somehow.
Yeah, there is a lot of books. So you have stories from the main universe is set in 40,000 Millennium. So it's...
Oh, that's what 40k means.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's in the 41st Millennium. So like M40. The way they do dates is like M is Millennium 40. And... yeah, 40,000 years in the future. You have 10,000 years in the future, or before that, which has, it's called the Horus Heresy era and the Great Crusade. There is like, I think, 20 books just for the Horus Heresy. There is about 10 to 20 books for just the time period before that. There are hundreds of books in the era of the time of like the 40,000 time frame, and there's stories from everything in between as well of those two time frames, but those two are the two main ones for stories. So
this is 40,000 years in the future.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So are there any humans at that time, or are they just these characters that I'm looking at?
Yes. So
curious.
Humans are the main kind of protagonists. The running joke is that there are no good guys in 40k.
Okay.
Because the main group is the Imperium of Man. It is an ultra religious fascist regime that controls most of the galaxy under the banner of someone called the God Emperor of Mankind.
So this 40k, is it on Earth, or is it happening out in the different planets and the space, or like? So
there's lots of stories that are told across the galaxy. Earth still exists. So Earth is still like the center of the Imperium. It is instead just called Terra, and it's the center of the religion. So the God Emperor himself is entombed on Terra itself, and Terra has just become a giant city, essentially, with hundreds of billions of people who live on it. There's no oceans left anymore. It was ravaged by war in the far-flung past, but Terra exists. Earth still exists, and humanity has just grown out from Earth to be across the entire galaxy.
So it probably looks like one of those old sci-fi movies we've seen where everything's gone gray and dark because of fighting and stuff on Earth.
Exactly, yeah. So getting up to the time of like 40,000, humanity spread itself out across the galaxy.
Okay.
Like 10,000 to 20,000 years into the future, we started spreading out, sending generational ships. We had such high technology that we could create black holes out of nowhere. We could do superimpositions of like two ships on the same ship, but 1 second in the future and explode it.
Similar to Star Trek in a way, or
like a lot more technology and a lot more power of full technology. But the entire point of 40k is that we reached this height, this like golden age, and even though we hit that golden age, we have declined. Everything is decline.
Declined in population or
in just like civilization. So major things happened that caused the worlds to kind of start rioting, destroy themselves, and all the technology that we once had is now lost. Everything is we thought that we had from the prosperity of technology and progress is meaningless because knowledge is just lost.
Wow. Sounds like a history book I'm reading or something about a different world. Yeah. No, it does seem like a world of its own. Like it's interesting.
It is because you have, of course, humanity, we have that background in history of where we were at, but there's also background in history of other different species that do exist, because it's not just humanity that exists. There are other species that, let me just put it this way. It's kind of like they went Lord of the Rings and just stole a bunch of stuff and then threw it into space. So you have space elves. You have space orcs.
So these are what these little characters are.
Yes, some of them are going to be this one. So this one is, in particular, this is the faction that Sonam decided she wanted to try and build and paint. This is the Sisters of Battle.
So these are
human.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Sisters of Battle, is that a group? What is that?
So they are a group
see this thing.
within, yeah.
I need to look at this.
Get the glasses out.
Yes. Over 40 syndrome, okay?
Yeah. So they're humans, but they are part of a religious faction.
Okay.
Dedicated specifically to the religion of the empire, of the god emperor, essentially. So these girls in particular are, the joke is they're nuns with guns. Because they're raised like nuns, they do hymns, they praise, they believe, they're super pious, and they go into battle and they sing about how the emperor will protect them, and they just murder anything that's not human.
Oh, okay. So they're not nuns in the traditional sense. They're on the violent side. Okay. So they're all trained in weaponry. They have weapons, like all of them are trained in this, or they just...
Oh, 100%. So they have different factions. So they're called orders. There are, of course, the Hospitalers, which are like they go out and they do charity, they do medicine, they treat the wounded, and they try and heal the sick. But then they have the militant faction, and these are women that have been trained since they were kids. Most of them they're orphans of war. And they are trained in weaponry, in religion, and everything's from when they were born. So these are all like Olympic level, like strength women. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So now, are there different teams or groups, or like just like we have on Earth, like they're different religions?
Kind of. When it comes to humanity, there is only the one.
Right. Okay.
There is only
in
like
40,000 years.
In the 40,000 years. Not today. No.
Today we have tons of them.
No.
So in 40,000 years, you just end up with one religion?
Exactly. Because the emperor at one point in 10,000 and 30,000 years from now, he had decided that he wanted to reunite humanity. Humanity had been scattered across the stars.
Okay.
He had fought a unification war on Earth, and he had reconquered it because it had turned into... Have you ever seen the movie Mad Max?
No, I can't recall. Probably have, but
like with Tom Hardy.
I can't recall it right now. I may have seen it, but I just can't recall right now.
Yeah, so Earth had just become like a desert, and there was just barbarians that were everywhere, techno barbarians. He conquered Earth, and then he reconquered everything. So there is only really for humanity that one faction now, because he had just gone out and taken over everything again.
Yeah, I may have seen it because I love Star Trek and all these Star Wars movies.
I don't know why you haven't seen Mad Max.
You know what? I'm going to actually find it, look for it, and see if I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's possible I've seen it. I just can't remember
because it's Mel Gibson. The original ones were in the 80s, and they were Mel Gibson.
Yeah. If Sonam has, pulled them out from somewhere, shown them to me, I've seen it.
I mean, I haven't seen the originals, but Fury Road, which is the one that came out 5 years ago, I think. Okay. That was with Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron. That's her name.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll find it.
You'll find it. But either way, it's like everything was kind of scrappy and like, you were just scrapping things together and making little mini kingdoms. You unified.
So you have one religion.
Now there is only one religion because the emperor was like just a pure atheist. He was a rationalist. He thought that we could explain the universe as it was without having to look towards faith or for a god or a deity or anything else.
So maybe being stupid here, but was the emperor human or was it one of these interesting looking things here?
So the emperor is a man.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, so it wasn't a stupid question.
So he's like... He described himself as like the epitome of man. He is like the ultimate human. But he is also something called a psyker. So on top of this being technology and everything, there is also a side realm called the warp. So when you want to travel through and go at light speed, you want to go to another star.
Right.
You know how Star Wars, you go to hyperspace.
Yeah.
Star Trek, you go to light speed.
Light speed.
You go to light speed.
Yep.
Or like you get a wormhole or something like that.
Yeah.
In 40k, you will rip a hole in space-time and you will go into another dimension called the warp.
Okay.
And this warp is just a realm of energy, but it allows you to travel really fast. But because it's energy and it's whatever you bring into it kind of goes into it, it's fed by emotions. And it is slowly over tens of thousands of years just become hell.
Wow.
So you go in there and there are literal demonic entities that are trying to like break down the ship to get inside.
Okay.
But there are people like the emperor himself that can take that energy out of the world and just like pull it down and do things. And they literally can do magic.
I was going to say do things like, I was going to say magic or do all these strange things that are not within the human power.
Exactly, yeah. So like, read someone's mind, or they can shoot lightning, they can smite an enemy, they can do all these different things. The emperor is like an ultimate version of that. So when most people see him, he looks like a 12-foot tall, like gold aura man that's standing before them in full like gold armor.
So 12 foot is not a human man as we know today.
He's not a human man.
So he's a different man.
But he might be some people think that he's putting on an illusion because there are people that can see through those and see him as what he really is, which is usually, just an average sized dude. He might be tens of thousands of years old. It's kind of up in the air. No one's really actually like got the real lore behind it. It's kind of...
So does the emperor rule all of these things as well?
No, just the Imperium of Man. So anything that is human is mostly run by the emperor.
What about the rest of them? Like all of these...
Yeah. So for example, like the faction that I particularly play.
Before we talk about that, what is a faction? I need to understand what the faction means. Like, what is it?
So faction is either a part of the military of like different groups.
Okay.
So like you have Imperium of Man, and you will have a faction in there being like just the regular guard. So like the regular army.
It's like a little group.
Kind of like a little group or like a major branch. So
got it. Okay, branch.
Yeah, think of like sense. You have the U.S. military and you have the Navy, you have the Air Force, Space Force, and then you have the regular army.
Okay.
But then you might have the French army, which might have a different setup for how they do things. So but each one's a different faction.
Okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now we can continue from now that I know what a faction is. Let's continue.
So you do have alien races that exist. Okay. So the faction that I play is an alien race called the Tau, and they are a group of various aliens that have worked together to work towards the greater good.
Okay.
That's how they work. In the Imperium of Man, you have like the Imperial Guard, which is your army. You have Space Marines, which are like special military, essentially.
Okay.
You have the Sisters Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle. You have Knights, which are these ones that I have in front of you. We haven't built them yet. Actually, at some point,
to paint some of these.
We're going to try and build these actually at some point.
I like painting.
So these are just like I said, they're like specialized. So they'll work with the Imperium of Man, but they will mostly do their own orders, and they have their own hierarchy of like who's in charge.
Okay, so it's still politics in a way.
Oh yeah,
there's different level.
There's more politics.
Yeah. So now I'm seeing the different sizes of all of these. Do they have any like meaning to that? Like why some are bigger than the other ones? Like some are really tiny, and I noticed some are.
It mostly just goes up from like this is a normal human.
Okay.
And then these ones are just like mechs, so they're not like someone might be like piloting and stuff. So if we pull this one here.
What about this one here, for example?
So someone might be inside that one, essentially.
It looks like
inside the chest.
Yeah, it looks like the Terminator thing.
Yeah. This one is not like the official ones that come from there, but it's one I 3D printed, but it's supposed to be someone inside of the chest and like curled up, essentially.
So it could be a human inside it.
Could be a human inside of it, yeah.
It's like the Avatar movie we saw, they had a human inside there. It looked almost exactly like this. Like the Avatar. Okay.
I'm thinking the new one has something very similar. But I have like, my stuff is a little bit different, but like these ones will have a human, like the knight armatures.
Right. Okay.
Like if you look at the sprue.
These ones. Okay.
Yeah. Like there will be a human inside this wall.
Yeah, I can see the weapons and the shields and all of that.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why there's different scales, but generally you have like, they try and keep it to like, oh, this is a human, this is a space marine, this is going up.
Okay. So this Sonam side and that's your side?
Because I have some of Sonam stuff on this side.
Oh, okay.
I just kind of was tossing things around as like, here's this, here's that. Like, let's just put it together.
So do you also is this all written by one person, or now is it because there seems to be so much to this, right? So many stories, so many things from what I'm looking at. So is this done all by one person, or is this now taken over by multiple people with different interests?
Yeah, this is taken over by a lot of different people. There are some like major voices, but a lot of the original people that started up, it was like 4 or 5 people that were just writing some like background fluff. And then they might have hired like 1 or 2 like regular writers to write a couple books, and then it's kind of expounded from there. So there are authors like Dan Abnett, Aaron Bensky-Bowden. Wow, I can't remember any of the authors' names right now. Damn it. But they will specialize in a particular type of story.
Got it.
And talk more about that. So like Aaron Dembski-Bowden is good at writing despicable characters that normally you would hate, but then you're like, hey, that guy's fun. He's flaying someone, but he's fun.
So each of these things have personalities, it seems.
It can be, yeah. Right? Because the whole point originally was that it's a model game. So you would build your model from the sprue, essentially. And you would paint it, and you would be able, as you're painting it, of course, like you're thinking like, okay, what's the story of this paint job? Is this from this particular house? Maybe it's been through a couple battles, and I might add some like battle damage.
Have scars.
Add scars, things like that. And then when you play the game as well, you'll create stories that go along with how they've played. So you might be like, hey, this one character stuck it out and didn't die. This is now like, I'm going to give this character, like this model, a name, and this character is now a badass. Like,
so you said character didn't die. So how do they die in this thing? Like, it's
just, so when you play the game in particular, you're rolling dice, and depending on like weapons, it'll be like the whip, like say for example,
some of the video games.
Yeah, like this would have whips, and maybe this whips someone and that deals damage to them. And it deals enough damage, and you would just take the model off the tube.
That's actually quite neat. Interesting. Oh,
yeah.
That is interesting. And are these flames up there, or what is
Those are flames, yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah,
and that's a weapon.
Sonam painted, I'm going to say like 60% of that one.
Okay.
Because she kind of gave up and was like, I just want this done.
I like the way you've got different shades and different colors. It actually looks very impressive.
Yeah.
And it's a very detailed job. I don't mind doing that.
There's a lot that you can do with, like, a lot of people spend a lot of time painting them, where it's become the hobby itself, or with 40k, there's like 3 prongs to it, to how you can enter into it. You can either be very much about the models and painting.
That was my next thing I was going to ask you. How did you get into it?
It's kind of been always on my periphery.
Like, how did you learn about it? How did you find out about it? Like, how did you get introduced to it?
So I've always known people that have been into it.
Oh, okay.
So either like when I was working like hospitality, I would hang out with the cooks, and there was a couple cooks that just would chat about it. And I would just hear about like, oh yeah, like the emperor and like his sons, like the Primarchs and this, and there's all this. And I was like, oh, okay, that's funny. And then I would know people that would also be kind of talking about it in like jokes, like blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne.
Okay.
And I've known about these kind of things for like decades, but it's never been like a just jump into it and get into it until like pandemic, and Sonam was looking for something to do. So that's where we got our first models, where it was just like, we're just going to paint some models. Okay. I started painting some, and then I kind of went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. And I'm kind of traveling with you into the rabbit hole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like for me, like it's always been something I kind of avoided going in depth of 40k, because I knew as soon as I started going in depth of it, I was going to go deep, because
I've seen you.
Because I've always been someone that I've loved going into the background of stories. I like when I played Halo as a teenager, I didn't just play the game and was like good at the game, but I actually I bought the books, I read the lore behind it, and I tried to learn more about the universe because I found it interesting, until they screwed it up. And
I like watching the movies, but I'm not into the books really as much. I'd rather watch a movie. That's much quicker. Yeah. Now, I was always interested. Now, see, I'm getting pulled in because I heard you talking about it. And I wanted to know, what is it that you're doing? What is this 40K? Yeah. So that was one of my key things. I wanted to know what it is. So when you're talking, at least I have some kind of a, in my mind, or an image of what it is that I'm looking at. Now, at least I know it's kind of a different world. Yep. And I just learned it's 40,000 years from now. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And still politics and all of these things that we've seen in these movies, Transformers and Star Trek and all of these other sci-fi movies, which I love. I love sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
So I think once I maybe understand a little bit more, I may be asking you a lot more details.
Of course, that's the fun. That's the fun part. But yeah, like I was mentioning before, there's also 3 kind of ways you can get into it. Mm-hmm. For some people, there is the you do the modeling. So some people might just pick it up and they want to.
Okay.
Like when you're doing model cars or anything when you're drawing up.
Those.
Yeah. Yeah. You grab the sprues, you clip them out, you build the model, you paint it up, and you say oh, I did a really good job. I'm really happy about that. Mm-hmm. I made a really, just getting my mind off of things. Or you do it while listening to an audiobook or just taking your mind off things. Then there is the lore aspect of it, which is people that they listen to the books, or they read the books. They go into the story of it and try and go through that, because there are a lot of books. And depending on what kind of books you like, there's a lot out there with it.
Are the books based on characters? Each character has a different book, or is it just the entire 40K? And I'm just trying to figure out what the books are about.
Yeah, so it depends. So you do have ones that are more about here's the unfolding story as it's happening in the galaxy, essentially. There are most of the good ones, though, are ones that are very character focused within the general of the setting. So one of the most well-known and beloved series is, I'll say there's 3 that I'll talk about here. There's one that's called Gaunt's Ghost, and there's about 12 books in this series.
Okay.
And it is about a regiment in the Imperial Guard that are going through a crusade, an entire war front in the galaxy. And it is their stories as they go through them. So you have characters that you follow throughout those books. And then their leader, Gaunt, who is their commissar that is leading them and making sure their morale and trying to win this war, essentially.
How do you remember all of this? Like I can't.
I told you, like, this is something like I grew up with.
In you. Yeah.
This is something I grew up with. So as soon as like I once 40k got its claws in me, it
held
deep.
them there. Yeah. So we talked about two of them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
One is by doing the model. The second is by just the books and stuff. What's the third one?
The third one is the game itself. So this is one where you will have your entire army, and some people like they do it through the modeling aspect of it. Like they just slowly build up enough to a point where they have an army essentially, or some people will just like get a bunch of them together, like slap a bunch of paint on it to be like, all right, it's good enough. I'm playing with it. But the game itself is two armies that are coming against one another.
Okay.
With the current version of the game, it's about objectives, trying to hold and control points on a board, and then also trying to, not die and trying to take out as much of the enemy as possible. So that way you can complete your objectives.
So is it like a board game as like, we have Monopoly and stuff? Like what?
Very similar. Yeah, very similar. So for example, like this, we had set up at one point to play a a smaller scale version of 40k called Kill Team. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Kill Team, and it's supposed to be a Spec Ops team, two Spec Ops teams that are trying to complete an objective in a small area. And you go back and forth with one another. So you move one model, your enemy will move a model on their side. You'll fight, do all these things. And you'll see this is about the size of the board where we have the black tape here.
Okay.
And that's how we kind of set it up. And we have terrain and things like that. You roll dice.
I was going to say, how do you make moves though?
Yeah. So either your model has a particular movement set that you'll use to like move up. So it's like, it's going to move 3 inches or 4 inches.
And how do you know that?
It comes in like data sheets. So you have like entire...
So each one of these, for example, this is part of your army, for example, right? This little thing.
Yeah.
So it has a data sheet that tells you what it is, what the capabilities are, what weapons there are.
Yeah. So...
That's a lot to remember.
So this is something I did for Sonam.
Oh.
So example, like this would be for this model. So this has all the data that would be particular for that model on in the Kill Team game. So
do you have to memorize all of this, or do you have a reference somewhere? Because
you'd have like this reference. So I gave these like cue cards to Sonam, so that way she'd be able to like say like, okay, I want to move. I'm going to move this much. I'm going to shoot. I have this many dice to shoot with, and on a 3, 4, 5, or 3, 4, 5, 6, I hit, kind of thing.
Okay, I think I need to see a game and play, because I can't visualize it, but I'm seeing that you're rolling a dice, and then each one of these has capabilities, different weapons, and then...
It can be a lot of memorization. So, like, I play the...
Sounds like a lot of memorization. Sounds like a lot of it, yeah.
So, I play the bigger version of the game.
You'd be bored with the smaller version of the game.
The smaller version, it's... So... With the smaller version of the game, you have individual models that you're moving around.
Okay.
With the larger version of the game, you would have a unit of models that you would move almost. Yeah, like a squad, individual squad that you would move.
Oh, okay.
And you'd be doing all the dice. Same thing, it has its data sheets and everything. So you kind of have to remember like general rules. So like its strength is this. I'm going to roll against your toughness. Your toughness is this. This is how much I'm going to roll for. And it goes back and forth, and it is a lot. It's about 2.5 hours to play one of the bigger games.
I was going to ask, how long does it take to play a game on average?
I take about 3.5 hours because I'm still not that great.
Okay, I find it hard to believe because listening to you, I don't...
No, I'm not that good.
Okay.
But like, yeah, you'll have construction of your like army. You'll have like, this is how many units I have. This is what this unit does. And like, it has this weapon, that weapon, all that kind of stuff. And there's special rule. It is a lot to like, when you go the big game, it takes a while to get into.
So it sounds like, I'm trying to relate it to something. It sounds like a video game in a way, where each character has different powers and stuff, but you have the buttons and they show up, that this character has these powers and you use them. So in this case, it's in models. It's the same type of a thing?
Yeah, pretty much similar. It's like Risk, but with more dice rolling and models.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I'm getting more interested. This kind of... Yeah. See, I am getting pulled into this.
I got my mother-in-law into it. I got my wife into it. I got my mother-in-law into it. What have I done? What have I done in my life that this is what I've come to?
I've become a nerd. I was a nerd. I'm becoming more of a nerd.
Listen, if you were here during Christmas, you would have been watching the entire Star Wars marathon with me, whereas Sonam will not watch it with me.
I did that. I watched the entire Star Wars thing. I love that. Yeah, we did that. Yeah.
That's what I grew up with.
Yeah, Star Trek. I loved William Shatner in it. I've watched that.
Oh, yeah, the original one.
Every single one. I loved it.
Deep Space Nine?
Yeah, I love Star Wars. Yeah.
But Deep Space Nine?
That's the one I never got into because I had school. I had to study. It was either that or study, right? I had to go to school and homework and projects. So I kind of left that at that time.
I was in university when I just flew through all those.
Yeah. But I think maybe one day I'll just, start with Star Trek again and then go through, see how it changed over the years. I think that'll be interesting.
It really has changed. I haven't watched any of the new ones yet. Anyway, back on topic.
We got off topic. Yeah, we're into Star Wars now.
That's just how we kind of go. Or how I go. So, Any other questions that you're like, what do you have for me? What do you got for questions?
I think to really understand it, to conceptualize, I really need to be able to see a few things, right? To do a few things. But I think I have a better understanding of what I had known before I just knew about Warhammer. I didn't know what the word even meant. Now at least I know what 40k means.
Yeah.
So even if that's the only thing I got out of this, that's still a great thing. But the factions, now I know what that means. When you talk about a faction, I can visualize that.
Yeah.
But I'd like to actually paint one of these things as well. I think that'll be fun because I used to paint car models with Sona when she was a kid.
Yeah.
So this is kind of similar to that. And
if you want to, right after this, we can
try that.
We can go for it.
That'll be fun. But so what are all so other than the people, these are all the weapons that you guys have?
No. So that is for my faction. That's another unit model person. It's a drone.
Oh, it's a drone. Okay.
It's just a drone because the faction that I play, they are a lot more high technology. They're a younger species, so they're only 6,000 years old.
Okay.
In general versus humanity's 40,000 years old. So they have little drones that go around and help them and are really nice.
I'm curious about one thing. You say you play one faction, right?
Yeah.
So it might be me who doesn't know anything about that. So each person only plays one faction when you play with somebody. Let's just say we are playing together, right?
Yeah.
So you have a faction that you bring with you. And I guess I would have the same thing?
No, you would you would have your faction that you would be playing.
Right.
So for example, a league that I'm playing in, which we just do, it's kind of more casual, but you at the beginning of the league, you would pick what faction you're playing,
right?
And you would stick with that for the entire league. So every round or game that you play, you're still playing your own faction.
Got it.
But someone else might be playing something else.
So would I have to know everything about your faction to play against you on a game? Or?
Not all the time, because the main goal is to have fun, right? So the sportsmanship is a big aspect of it. Is you can be generally hey, your big gun or your big
for example, I have this, right? This is a part of my faction, right? So I roll a dice or something, I put it somewhere, and then. How would you know what the capabilities of my
It's typically
pieces?
You would tell me. You would say hey, this is just troops. So there's some general things that you
trust
can get across.
There's some trust base in there.
There is some trust base, but of course it's if you... Some people do try and be kind of shady about it, but generally you don't keep playing with that person.
So it's not clear cut. It can be shady as well, gray.
It could be, but... A lot of people, especially in communities, are very, very aggressive against that kind of thing, where it's that's why a lot of the times you play what you see is what you get. So when you see a bunch of troops, you know that they're a bunch of troops. When you see a tank, you know it's going to be a tank.
Okay.
And because there's a lot of communication back and forth. So it's I am shooting against your tank. How tough is it? Oh, it's toughness 8. Okay, cool. I'm going to do this. But at the beginning of the game, a lot of people will tell you what are the gotchas, what are the things that could happen.
Okay.
Hey, if you move here, there's a high chance I'm going to kill everything that goes there. Because I have this specific ability. I'm letting you know where things are and what they have as an ability. So that way it's not a like, you don't feel bad about things because it is a lot to take in.
Yeah, I'm a visual learner, so I need to be able, I think I need to see something in action.
Yeah.
Or when you maybe play one of your games, I actually will watch the video and see how you guys play. Or maybe I might be part of one of them. I don't know. Let's see how that goes. But, that sounds quite interesting.
Yeah. So you kind of build it up over time. And it's the other thing, too, is because to play a full game, it takes a while to build up your models. You typically are like looking into things as you go along. So you might be like reading up on it because each faction has a codex. So a book that will have rules on it.
Wow. Okay.
I forgot to bring them in.
I'm sure you have them.
Yeah. So we have one for my faction, which is they're called the Tau Empire. Okay. And then we have the Adeptus Sororitas one, which is Sonum's. It has lore, it has art, it has all this other kind of other stuff, but it has all the rules in the back. So that way you can read, and as you're building your army, you might be just reading the codex and being like, I could do this in this circumstance.
So when you buy one of these characters or what, so I guess it comes with whatever the fact sheet on each character when you buy it.
Some of them, yes.
Oh, some of them?
So the rules change a lot. So that's a whole other mess.
So there's no black and white in this thing.
No.
I was thinking, you buy this and then it comes with everything you need to know. Just
like the morality of this entire game or like the entire lore, nothing's black and white. So this everything is like dark shades of gray.
So it's always evolving then. It's not like they're set rules. Those rules are evolving.
The rules are constantly evolving. So right now we're in the 9th edition of the game. So it's been going on since the 1980s. So they changed the rules up. And one faction, they kind of slowly drip out the rules for each faction. So they don't release all the books at once. So some factions have just basic rules, but they don't have the rules for 9th edition. They drop that codex and it has a bunch of rules in it that could change how the game plays against everything else because it might be really strong or it might be kind of crap. But then when it comes to more competitive games, they change up the rule set every like 6 months or so. So how missions are played, how armies are set up. It's all that, yeah. So
you have to be really passionate about this stuff. This is not for somebody who's not passionate about it.
And people really are. And I think I'm really like lucky at where I'm at because our area is actually really saturated with a lot of people that like 40k. Like Ontario in general has a lot of people that are very much into 40k.
Think about it. I've never heard of
Canada,
40k.
Actually, in Canada, there is a lot of people that are into 40k because we have in BC, there's a YouTube channel that makes they do games. That's all they do is just games. There's one that's in Niagara region that actually does games. Okay. Mini wargaming. There is a podcast out of Ottawa that actually is on competitive games. And like the Ottawa competitive scene is really, really big. Okay. The Montreal scene is pretty big as well. Like it's quite a lot. And I think we're lucky where we are in Canada that we have so much.
Oh, so first time I heard about it was in the summer, I think this year. I saw you with these little things, or I heard that Nick has these little toys, but I didn't know what they meant. So now I at least have a better understanding of what these are and what you do in that little room downstairs or what you're painting, because I saw so many of these things.
I think I'm coming out of my little workshop.
Yeah, you're coming to the room now upstairs. Well, because now you're making us understand what you do. You're not just hiding and painting the little things and, being a little kid.
Yeah.
There's a bigger story to this. Like it's
I have my
it's a whole new world.
It is. And my workshop.
Yeah.
My audience doesn't know this yet, but I have a workshop and it is literally just like a little hole in the wall beside the garage. And I have my 3D printer in there. And it's like 3D printer, the washing clean station. And then I have my airbrush set up in the back corner. And like, I'm just like shuffling.
It's just enough room for Nick to kind of sideways walk in there. That narrow. Yeah. That's his space. Yeah.
I have to like heat it up in the winter so that way I can actually 3D print things.
Have you printed any of these things?
Yes. The 3D printer? Oh. Anything that is not Sonum's things.
Okay.
All of this is 3D printed.
Oh, let me see that. So that's on the printer downstairs? I did not know that.
Yeah.
I thought everything is bought.
So those ones are bought. No. Oh. Those ones are not bought. This, all of these, essentially.
So this is printed on the printer?
That I 3D printed.
This is 3D printer. Wow. So can you buy it as well if you didn't want to print it on somebody didn't have a printer?
You can get services and stuff. There's quite a few people that actually like rent out time essentially for you to 3D print things if you wanted to. I really got into it because the designer that makes these ones in particular, I just love her designs so much that it's actually what kind of really got me fully into it. Was because I got the 3D printer and I was like, this is so beautiful. I love the design so much. So I thought you bought all of these. So this is something new that I just learned. No. When you print these, do they come out print looking like this? Not really. It's kind of like off of that. So like if you cut all those pieces off, that's how I print them. I print them on supports so that way they print appropriately, but like you just crack them off and you clean them a little bit.
And then you make these.
And then you make it you have to do super glue. So with the plastic that Games Workshop uses, it's actually, you can use plastic cement, which just melts it and puts it together.
That's what I used to use for the
That's resin,
models.
and resin doesn't. You need super glue.
Okay. See, I was thinking when you told me the 3D printer, I thought it comes out looking like this and you just paint it.
So sometimes you can get them to print out like that, but it's because it's the limitations of how you can print it, right?
Yeah, this is cool.
It's better just to print it in pieces and rebuild it.
Yeah, that's a lot of details. Wow. Okay, very interesting.
I'm the most proud of that.
So I'm getting more and more interested the more and more I hear you talk about it and see things, because I'm a visual learner. So this has actually been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're good. I think we should just start building some stuff.
We could do that.
Let's build some stuff. Let's go get Sonam and we'll build some things.
Yeah, I like building stuff.
Thank you for joining us. Again, I somehow got my mother-in-law into things.
I got roped into it, but you know what?
I think you know what? I think I just married correctly. I think that's the appropriate thing to think.
And you know what? I'm doing my part by learning because Nick's in our family. So you know what? I want to know what he does, and so I can actually have a conversation about this stuff and understand it, not just like what the hell is this stuff and be lost. So now actually I'm learning a little bit. I don't have to get into it, but I just want to know enough about what is it that you do and what interests you. So it's been interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
If you like today, let me know down in the comments and I'll chat about it with you guys. If you want to have more of this, I'm just going to have to convince her to come up more frequently. I don't think that's really going to be too difficult.
Yeah, he just has to make sure that, it's only every few months. He doesn't want to have too much of me in there as well.
Yeah. No, just come on more frequently. You get to be with Moji.
Yeah, I have nothing else to do.
But yeah, subscribe if you want more. Check out this video where we go over all the other, weapons of 40k with Sonam and the medical implications of that. And that's it for now. Bye.